You know, your home, it's probably your biggest investment, right? It's the place you've poured so much time, energy, and resources into making it perfect. But here's the big question. Is the insurance policy that's supposed to protect it built with that same level of care and detail? Let's dive in, because we're about to see why a standard, off-the-shelf policy just doesn't cut it when it comes to a high-value property.
And listen, this isn't just me saying this, it's not some hot take. It is a fundamental reality of the insurance industry. When you rely on a standard policy for a non-standard home, you're creating these huge, dangerous financial gaps. And the worst part? Most homeowners don't even know they're there until it's way, way too late. So that brings us right to the heart of the problem, what we call the luxury protection gap. Think of it like this. It's this massive mismatch between a generic, one-size-fits-all policy and the very specific, very complex needs of a custom, high-end home. Let's really break down what that means for you. Okay, so the single most important thing to get your head around is the difference between actual cash value and guaranteed replacement cost. It's night and day. See, actual cash value pays you for what your stuff is worth today after depreciation. So that incredible imported Italian marble you installed 5 years ago, the insurance company says, well, it's 5 years old now, and they pay you a fraction of what it costs to replace. You could be out hundreds of thousands of dollars. But guaranteed replacement cost, that's the promise to rebuild your home exactly as it was, to its original standard, period, no matter what it costs. For a luxury home, this is the absolute non-negotiable gold standard. And that whole idea leads us right into the first pillar of proper coverage, making sure you can rebuild your home exactly as it was. No shortcuts, no compromises, no being forced to downgrade because your policy wasn't up to snuff. So why the huge disconnect? It's because the software and the calculators that standard insurance companies use, well, they fail spectacularly with luxury homes. They just can't price out things like hand-carved facades or custom steel windows. Seriously, their systems are built to see square footage and zip codes, not craftsmanship. They have no way of accounting for the unique materials or the master artisans you'd need to bring back to restore your home.
And that is precisely why a professional appraisal is not just a good idea, it's essential. It's the only way to capture the true cost to rebuild. And here's a little insider tip. A lot of the best high-net-worth carriers, think companies like Chubb or Vault, they actually include a complimentary appraisal. That's a service you're just not going to find with a standard insurance company. All right, so we've talked about the house itself, but now let's shift gears and talk about protecting your entire financial world. Because let's be honest, the risks don't just stop at your front door. They can actually threaten everything else you've worked so hard to build. Take a look at this number, $500,000. So what is that? Well, that's a pretty typical liability limit on a standard homeowner's policy. And for anyone with significant assets, that number isn't just inadequate. It's dangerously, almost shockingly low. Just think about it for a second. A totally plausible scenario. A guest slips and falls by the pool, or the delivery guy gets a little nip from your dog. All of a sudden, you're facing a lawsuit, and a big one can blow past that $500,000 ceiling in a heartbeat. And then what? Well, then they start coming after your investment portfolio, your retirement accounts, even your future income.
This is exactly why umbrella insurance isn't a luxury, it's an absolute necessity. It's literally an extra layer of protection, like a giant financial umbrella that opens up after your regular homeowner's liability is maxed out. It's what stands between a catastrophic lawsuit and your entire financial future. And hey, what about all the valuable things inside your home? Your prized possessions. A standard policy has tiny little limits for things like jewelry. It basically treats your Patek Philippe watch the same way it treats a watch you bought at a department store. It's crazy. For your real collections, fine art, jewelry, that amazing wine collection, you need to schedule them. That just means listing them out, item by item, with their appraised value, so you know for sure they're covered for what they're actually worth.
You know, the world of risk is always changing, always evolving. A policy that might have been perfectly fine 10 or even 5 years ago could be completely blind to the kinds of threats that modern luxury homes are facing right now. And a lot of today's biggest risks, the ones people often forget about, fall into three main buckets: cyber attacks, severe water damage, and something you might not have thought about, the high cost of keeping up with new building codes. Each one of these can lead to massive, unexpected bills. Think about your smart home, All those connected systems for security, climate, lighting, they're amazing conveniences, right? But they're also brand new digital doorways for criminals to walk through. That's why having specific cyber insurance is so crucial now, to protect you from things like ransomware attacks or identity theft that can come right through your smart home network. Okay, now let's talk water damage, which can be absolutely devastating. A standard policy might give you a measly $5,000 for something like a sewer line backing up. $5,000! But imagine that water flooding your finished basement, the one with the custom home theater, the gym, the wine cellar. The actual damage could easily be over $100,000. That gap between what's covered and what it costs, it's just enormous. All right, here's a really important one that most people have never even heard of. It's called ordinance or law coverage. So let's say you have an older, maybe even a historic home, and you have a major fire. Well, you're legally required to rebuild it to meet today's much stricter building codes. That can get incredibly expensive. This coverage pays for those mandatory, costly upgrades. It can literally save you from a huge financial nightmare you never saw coming. Okay, so we've talked about all the critical things that need to be in your policy. Now, let's switch to strategy. How do you manage all this to get the best protection in the smartest, most efficient way? I really love this quote because it completely reframes how we should think about insurance. You have to treat it as protection against a financial catastrophe, not as some kind of maintenance fund for small repairs. It's a shield for the big stuff. And once you start thinking that way, your whole strategy shifts. This is where using a higher deductible comes in. By choosing one that's maybe $10,000 or even $25,000, you can dramatically lower your annual premium. I mean, think about it. You're probably not going to file a claim for a few $1,000s anyway, right? So this just aligns your policy with its real job, protecting you from that catastrophe. And it saves you a good chunk of money year after year. Whew, okay. We have covered a lot of ground here. So let's boil it all down into a simple, clear, 4-step action plan that you can use to really stress test your own insurance coverage. All right, here are the 4 absolute non-negotiables. Step 1, demand guaranteed replacement cost. No excuses, no exceptions. Step 2, get those valuable collections, the art, the jewelry, the wine, appraised and scheduled separately. Step 3, insist on high liability limits and make sure they're backed up by a strong umbrella policy. And finally, step 4, take a hard look at your water damage and cyber coverage to make sure you're protected from modern-day risks. So, I'll leave you with this one final thought. Take a minute to really think about the home you've built, the life you've created, all the assets you've worked for. And then ask yourself a really honest question. Is the piece of paper that's supposed to protect all of it, is it just a standard document, or is it a custom-built shield, truly worthy of everything you've invested?